Welcome back. Today I would like to introduce the concept of dopamine surges. Dopamine is often hailed as the brain's feel-good chemical, playing a pivotal role in reward, motivation, and pleasure. However, the way that dopamine operates in the brain is far more complex than simply triggering moments of joy or satisfaction. Dopamine is not only involved in the pleasurable feelings that follow rewarding activities, but also plays a significant role in motivating behaviors and shaping our desires. The distinction between a high, steady-state level of dopamine and the desires generated by surges of dopamine is crucial to understanding human behavior, particularly in relation to addiction, motivation, and long-term contentment. To understand the difference between a steady-state level of dopamine and the surge-driven dopamine response, it is important to first appreciate dopamine's broader role in the brain. As a neurotransmitter, dopamine is central to the brain's reward system. It is released in response to rewarding stimuli, whether those are physical, such as eating food or having sex, or psychological, such as achieving a goal or receiving praise. Dopamine's primary function is to signal reward and motivate behaviors that are likely to lead to future rewards. In other words, dopamine helps us not only enjoy the pleasure of rewards, but also propels us to pursue activities that will give us those rewards. However, dopamine does not work in a simple binary way. It can have both short-term and long-term effects on the brain. This creates a critical distinction. A steady-state level of dopamine that maintains overall motivation and well-being versus the bursts or surges of dopamine that occur in response to specific rewarding activities. A high steady-state level of dopamine refers to the baseline or constant level of dopamine that circulates in the brain, influencing overall motivation, mood, and cognitive function. This steady level of dopamine is essential for maintaining daily drive and a general sense of well-being. In this state, dopamine does not fluctuate wildly, but remains relatively stable, supporting long-term goals, relationships, and ongoing satisfaction. Steady dopamine levels are associated with positive mental health, as they help individuals maintain a sense of motivation and stability. It allows a person to pursue long-term goals without constantly seeking immediate gratification. A steady-state level of dopamine helps with maintaining focus, self-control, and resilience in the face of challenges. It also plays a role in regulating emotions and mood, contributing to an overall sense of balance and fulfillment. For example, individuals with high, steady dopamine levels may feel a sustained sense of pleasure in achieving personal goals, helping others, or participating in rewarding activities. These individuals are likely to be more motivated by intrinsic goals such as self-improvement, learning, or contributing to society. The pleasure derived from achieving these long-term goals is not fleeting, but rather enduring, creating a deeper sense of satisfaction and contentment. Moreover, steady dopamine levels are linked to adaptive healthy behaviors. In a steady state dopamine environment, an individual is more likely to engage in activities that provide lasting benefits, such as exercise, meaningful social interactions, and creative pursuits. These activities are rewarding in a manner that does not depend on quick, intense bursts of pleasure, but on gradual, sustained satisfaction. On the other hand, dopamine surges are what most people recognize as the highs associated with pleasurable experiences. These bursts of dopamine occur in response to immediate rewards, such as eating a delicious meal, engaging in risky behavior, or using drugs or alcohol. These surges serve to reinforce certain behaviors, signaling to the brain that the experience was pleasurable and should be repeated. The key difference here is that these surges are often short-lived and may lead to temporary pleasure, followed by a desire to seek out the same or greater reward again. Dopamine surges, while they may feel intensely pleasurable, tend to be linked to desire-driven behavior. After experiencing a surge of dopamine, a person might feel a craving or urge to re-experience the same reward, often leading to compulsive behaviors. This creates a feedback loop in which the brain becomes conditioned to seek out the immediate gratification that dopamine surges provide. Over time, this can lead to a focus on short-term pleasure rather than long-term fulfillment, shifting motivation away from healthy, steady-state activities to those that offer instant rewards. This pattern is most clearly seen in addiction. When an individual repeatedly experiences dopamine surges through substance use, such as drugs, alcohol, or even social media, the brain's reward system becomes overstimulated. As the brain adapts to these surges, it requires more significant stimuli to achieve the same dopamine response. This escalating need for stimulation can lead to compulsive and destructive behaviors as the individual constantly seeks more intense pleasures, often neglecting long-term well-being and relationships in the process. For example, addictive behaviors like binge eating or gambling may be driven by the desire to experience a dopamine surge. The intensity of the dopamine rush during these behaviors can overshadow the steady, balanced state of motivation that supports healthy living. In such cases, the brain may prioritize the immediate short-term pleasure over long-term goals, leading to detrimental patterns of behavior. The challenge for human beings lies in finding a balance between the steady-state level of dopamine that supports long-term goals and the desire for pleasure that comes from dopamine surges. Ideally, both types of dopamine activity should be integrated in a way that allows for sustained motivation and the enjoyment of immediate rewards without falling into the trap of compulsive pleasure seeking. In practical terms, individuals can cultivate a high steady-state level of dopamine by engaging in activities that promote long-term well-being, such as regular exercise, meaningful work, or spiritual practice. These activities tend to produce a more stable, continuous release of dopamine, contributing to a healthy sense of motivation, contentment, and emotional regulation. In contrast, dopamine surges should ideally be kept in check to prevent the brain's reward system from becoming overstimulated. While pleasurable activities like eating, socializing, and enjoying entertainment can produce dopamine surges, it is important to approach these experiences in moderation. Overindulgence can lead to habituation, meaning that the brain requires progressively more intense stimuli to achieve the same level of pleasure, creating a cycle of desire and disappointment. The distinction between a high, steady-state level of dopamine and the pleasure-seeking behavior driven by dopamine surges is critical to understanding human motivation and well-being. While steady dopamine levels support long-term goals, emotional balance, and overall happiness, surges of dopamine are tied to short-term desires and the pursuit of instant gratification. By cultivating a balance between these two modes of dopamine activity, individuals can sustain motivation for long-term growth and achievement while enjoying life's pleasures without becoming trapped in a cycle of craving and addiction. This balance is key to achieving a fulfilling and meaningful life, driven not only by fleeting pleasures, but also by enduring satisfaction and purpose.